I'm here today with Denie Hiestand. In listening to his story and how he developed this skincare line, and then subsequently I've used his skincare line myself, I have realized it's the finest skincare line, in my opinion, in the world, because it is alive and it works. And Denie is going to give us background about himself at this point, and he's going to answer some questions to help us understand why Electric Body is probably the finest skincare line in the world. Please. Nice to see you. Nice to be here with you.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's been a journey. My life started off in rural New Zealand, Swiss immigrants' parents, so I was brought up with that incredible Swiss workaholic, do it perfect, no compromising. Was never very happy as a child, I don't think. Big family, hard work, that's all I remember. Went into engineering when I left school, although I was brought up on a dairy farm. Excelled in engineering. I just loved metallurgy, where you can take something from sand and iron ore and make a car. It satisfied something in my soul. After my engineering degrees, I went back to farming again when I got married, and worked right through the farming process in New Zealand, and ended up owning 500 cows and leased another property with 3,000 sheep. So I was pretty big in agriculture science at the time, and also in agriculture politics, until my life hit a crossroads and hit a brick wall. I crashed and burned emotionally, mentally and physically. That's when I got introduced to natural health, and that fed my soul in another direction. So I actually qualified in 7 different natural health modalities. But you know, the pieces of paper have never meant anything to me, because all this passing exam does, and I topped New Zealand 6 exams out of 6 in my engineering, was I figured out any exam's easy to get top marks with. All you have to do is answer the questions the way the examiner wants you to answer. Whether it's logic, whether it's real, whether it actually exists, or it's true, is really not the issue. And particularly in the health field, when I did my anatomy and that, I realised that they're only looking at a gross pathology level and not looking at how the body actually works. So I did my own investigation, my own journey. It really took me 30 years of my life to figure out how life works. And of course, you know, the Chinese would always say you take 15 years before you can be a master. You know, in America you can go on to a weekend course and be a master of this and a master of that. It's just absolutely nuts. So yeah, it was a lifelong learning process to figure out why I was dying. Then I got better, and then to figure out, how did that really work? What mechanism made my cells fire again? What mechanism made me feel life pulsing through my cells again? And then I started a natural health practice. 25 years later, 30 years later, I've been doing this now, working with my hands and advising people and giving them the basis of my knowledge and helping them regain their life. As a natural health consultant, I'm not allowed to cure people or diagnose disease. It's an amazing country, this country called the United States of America. You're not allowed to touch another human being and say, I see you, I know what's wrong with you, and if you do this, you'll probably help yourself get better. That's actually illegal to heal somebody unless you use a drug or a medical profession. And that's the only culture ever in human history that there's the laws of the land that we can't help each other to get well. Yeah. That to me is evil. However, I ignore that and I help people get better on a daily basis. But yes, breast cancer became a huge impact in my clinical work, and so I just had to look at the reasons for breast cancer and came up with, after a lot of investigation, a lot of scientific information coming out of Europe and some of the best biophysicists minds in the world, and they all told me the same thing when I questioned them in private. Yeah, we know what breast cancer is. It's a tumour in the breast. Is a toxic waste dump. It's a jail for the bad people, bad compounds. Yeah, sure. And that's all it is. So, where the bad compounds come from, why is it indexed to women? I'll explain later, but it's basically women put chemicals and non-life-giving compounds on their absorbable skin, and it all goes into their blood. And the blood filters it out, wraps it up in a jar, and there's your breast lump, like cancer, eventually. So I took all my clients off all skincare products if they want their cancer reversed, which I have a lot of success in doing. And then one beautiful lady from San Diego, basically asked me, she was dying of breast cancer, that I'd make something that gave them beautiful skin without killing them. So that started me on another journey, almost a third journey of my life really, to figuring out, well, what is healthy skin? What is beautiful skin? Beautiful skin is healthy skin. How do you make healthy skin? What is the parameters? How can you get somebody something to put on their skin? Because everybody in the Western world, and also most of the world now, wants to put something topical on their skin to give them beauty. Well, rather than give them beauty, if health is beauty, why not give them health? So instead of masking the issues, I figured out how God's rules work and made a biological live compound based on New Zealand colostrum, because it's the only place in the world where you've got 4 million dairy cows, all pastoral grazed. We farm them on a seasonal basis, so it's exactly the way they would live if they lived in the wild. And the second 24 hours milk from after every birth of every mammal is colostrum, not the first one, but the baby, the calf gets the first one. We take the second one. It's not an infinite supply, it's a very, very rare commodity. And by the way, it's actually the most expensive compound on earth. It's more expensive than gold, pound for pound.
Wow.
Because you can only get 2 gallons from each cow once a year.
Once a year.
Wow. That's it. It's only 2 milkings it's taken from.
So that brings us to Electric Body, the life-giving skincare system.
That's changing the cosmetic industry in the world.
In your book, Journey to the Truth, tell us about that battle that goes on between the ego and the spirit. Because it's mentioned in the book, and a lot of people are going to wonder what led you to this realization. So go ahead and kind of elaborate on that for me.
I think it's really a battle that most men confront or be confronted with sometime in their life. Is I was a workaholic. I think I was very successful in what I did in my agriculture, and before that in engineering. And you get to a stage in life where those physical successes, the wealth, if you like, or the comfortableness in life, the success you've achieved, it doesn't mean anything. And I think it's usually referred to as guys going through their midlife crisis. They get the trophy wife and the Porsche. Well, maybe I got that too. But I went through about a 5-year period of the dark night of the soul, but was driven from something that was always in me. I had this incredible, deep-seated thing that I didn't want to know about, I didn't want to understand, I didn't want to bring out, but it was always like I had to be in service to people. I always wanted to help people. I worked in agriculture, politics, and the downtrodden, and the financial crisis of New Zealand, and we try to help as many people as we can. I had this thing inside of me that was driving a concept within me that wasn't being realised in my physical, successful life. And
was that the spirit part of it?
That's the spirit part of it, absolutely. I think as a human being, we embody in these bodies with an energy field usually called a soul. That is probably 30% of who we are, or more. And if we don't follow those instinctive urges inside us, we run into brick walls. Life becomes empty. And so that's the battle between spirit and ego, if you like. That you have to let go of the things you think are going to make you happy and successful, and to find the truth in yourself and do the things and follow that soul's urging, that universal drive within you to do what is right for you. It may not be right for anybody else, but it's right for you. And of course, that's a hell of a journey to take.
So you're saying it's like almost a personal balance. Each person to balance the
exactly, and it's what every old culture, every old religion is saying. Unless there's balance in what you're physically doing to what is driving your soul, you're out of balance and out of harmony, and chaos happens. And trust me, chaos happened in my life. Even though I was incredibly successful, I hit a brick wall, and I had to meet myself coming back the other way, and that's not pretty. But I got through that, and I realised, and since then I've been teaching that process in our vibrational wellness schools, of how you can actually listen to yourself and not go through the pitfalls by self-destruction in that change process. Yeah, and I've met many, many successful businessmen, some of the top businessmen in the world, at our schools and also privately, that have said the same thing, how incredible that journey is and how difficult it is. Well, I wrote about my journey to help other guys particularly other guys, to go through. One woman rang me up and she said, look, I found your book, Journey to Truth, and she said, but I'm married to Archie Bunker, not the Archie Bunker, but I'm married to a Archie Bunker. And I said, listen, I know how men work. I said, give them the book as a Christmas present and put on the card, you've received my present when you've read the book. And don't do anything else. And he probably won't read it. But, you know, I said, does he go on business trips? He said, yes, he does a couple of times a year. And I said, okay, next time. And I said, no doubt, if you're married to an Archie Bunker, you're packing his bags. She said, yes, I do. How do you know that? I said, trust me, I know guys. And so I said, just pop the book in it with the card again. And she did that twice over the course of 18 months. She phoned me back about, must have been 18 months, 2 years after our first conversation, and she was crying and crying and crying. And she, Denie, she said, thank you so much. She said, I did what you've told me to do twice now, and he's just phoned me up. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when she phoned me on a business trip. He's got to page 266 in your book, and he's crying. He said, you got through to Archie Bunker. Wow, that's huge.
That's a huge breakthrough, huge impact in the man's life.
Yeah.
But that's phenomenal. In your other book, Electrical Nutrition, what do you mean by electrical? And what does that encompass?
It's really the extension of my journey finding who I was and what my mission was here, what my purpose was in life. And in that understanding, I come to the conclusion that everything we've been taught about nutrition, how these bodies work, disease, the allopathic medicine system is really a crock of shit. And I say that in all seriousness, because we are currently now in the United States of America, and predominantly in most Western countries, but particularly in the United States of America, it's worse. We're the most diseased race ever to walk the face of the earth. We spend more on healthcare than any other time in human history, and yet we've still got the biggest disease, self-inflicted disease race ever in human history. So something was wrong, and what was wrong is we're looking at the process of life and what is life from a wrong point of view. We're looking at it from a chemistry point of view, from an allopathic point of view, which looks at the pathology rather than why the pathology malfunctions, which is an electrical process. You cannot have any disease, anything going wrong, nothing can happen in your body without there being an electrical malfunction first. And so it's you know, and that's become, I was always interested in energy and quantum physics. I'm a trained metallurgist, so when you anneal two metals together, you've got one frequency and one frequency, you put the two together, you haven't got one and one don't make two, make something totally different.
You don't have the right balance.
It interfaces, reacts, and acts to the universe totally differently when you mix two things together. So that's not a chemical compound, basically, or chemical formulation. It's an electrical matrix that's being created, and any quantum physicist will agree with that. So I wrote a book about how the body works and how nutrition affects us and how things happen in our body from that electrical perspective rather than a chemical perspective. And it's really, it's simple and it's brilliant.
Well, now that leads me to another question. Why isn't this philosophy of dealing with our bodies taught in, and I'm not going down a path that we shouldn't go down, but why is it not universally taught?
Well, it is everywhere except in the Western world.
It is.
Purely because follow the money. In the United States of America, if we took the military and all its tentacles out of the US economy, 60 cents in every dollar that's left would be indexed to disease in some way, shape or form, from health insurance to pharmaceutical, everything else. We have created an industry based on disease. So nobody will ever be told the truth from your government, from your health advisors, because who trains the doctors? The pharmaceutical industry. Who advises government? Those doctors who are trained by the pharmaceutical industry. Who makes money out of disease? Of course, the doctors, the healthcare system, and the pharmaceuticals. In agriculture science, where I come from, we have to know about health, because the only way a farmer makes money is when he's got a healthy cow. How do you make money in the healthcare system in the United States of America? Only when somebody is diseased do you go and spend some money. Right. So we've never been told the truth. We couldn't have been told the truth. And it was illegal to even give dietary advice about how to be healthy up until 1985. And doctors never learn about nutrition, which has the biggest single impact on health. And yet you're not allowed to say that food can make you healthy. It is illegal in this country to say food makes you healthy. And yet every agriculturist knows the first thing when an animal gets sick, we think, what are we feeding it? What's going on here?
What's going on here internally?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
In human nutrition and human disease, that is never. We have not got a healthcare system in this country. We've got a disease management system.
Well, that sort of answers my next question is how do we obtain optimal health weight, vitality, and what we need. What do we need to do and know to accomplish that? And you just sort of told me that.
Well, basically understand how nature works.
And
somebody asked me the other day, I had a family wedding and a whole lot of friends and family over from New Zealand and Australia, and somebody asked me, what's your favourite saying? And everybody in the band, because they all know me, they piped up and said, God didn't get it wrong.
God didn't get it wrong.
And we have strayed so far from the parameters of what life is in this country, and that's why we're all diseased, and that's why our problem is. Go back to basics. We're a hunter-gatherer, we've got a protein body like every mammal on this face of this earth. There's no vegetarians on this earth. Even a cow's not a vegetarian, she's a herbivore. She got a 4-stomach system and can extract the protein out of vegetative matter, and like every mammal, we're all protein builders. We're built from protein. To understand the basics of life, and that's simple, and that is, and when you understand that, you understand the electrical construct, you understand how energy transfers, or the energy in food transfers to our life force. We are a live, vibrating, electromagnetic field of energy.
Well, and once again, you're leading right into my next question, is in obtaining that well-being that we all need and strive for, are there any other alternatives other than knowing and doing what you've just described? And I can gather that there are no other alternatives. You have to know and you have to do what you've written about in your book.
Absolutely. Lance Strayer, the former Mr. American, held my book up on his television show, the Electrical Nutrition book, and said, if you ever want to know how to have a healthy body, this is the only book you need to read. So, a former Mr. America, I think he knows a little bit about how to make a body work properly.
Oh, yeah.
And I attended many medical conferences around the world that I've talked to and give seminars to, and of course the book is around the world. It's exactly right. It's not difficult. In fact, it is far more difficult, spread over many years, to make yourself ill, what it is to have a healthy body. You actually have to work very hard at this body. It's got a huge amount of tolerances. It's got a huge ability to get rid of the toxins out of the body. But if you keep pouring it in every day, day after day, you are going to crash and burn. Because the first thing that will go off is the electrical interface between the molecules and between the cells and the cells' membranes. It contracts, it runs out of energy. Therefore, the nutrition doesn't come in, the oxygen doesn't come in, the garbage doesn't go out, and chaos evolves. There is no disease except an electrical malfunction.